rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifice of the armed service members who protect our nation and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Councilmember Quinn?
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Here.
Councilmember Kritz?
Here.
Councilmember Salberg? Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Noon?
Here.
Vice President Sackett?
Here.
President Jackson?
Here. This meeting was advertised in the Daily Record and the Star Ledger, the official newspapers for the Township of Rockaway, on January 11th, 2020. Notice was posted on the official bulletin boards of Rockaway Township. Before we get into the meeting, if everybody doesn't mind, we're going to have a brief presentation by Mr. Tabbitt, our health officer.
Thank you, Mr. Council President, and thanks for the opportunity to provide just a brief update on the COVID-19 or coronavirus and where we're at. Just a tiny bit of information. For those who don't know, COVID-19 or coronavirus is one of many coronaviruses. It's a novel virus, meaning it's new, and for that reason there's no particular immunity to it. There's no vaccine for it, as many people probably know. We know where it originated, where public health experts know, in the Wuhan city in China, in mainland China. It's not that much different than SARS, if those remember the severe acute respiratory syndrome, or the Middle East respiratory syndrome that came up in 2003 and 2012 respectively and caused some panic globally and were reconciled over time. We know that the COVID-19 spreads person to person, and we've seen it now, as most everyone knows, in communities, even in parts of New Jersey. Currently, 35 states in the District of Columbia have seen cases of COVID-19. There's 647 cases in the country as of about 4 p.m. today, 25 deaths. Here in New Jersey, we've had 15 cases as of this morning, with one death recently reported in the last several hours in Bergen County. Despite these numbers, the CDC tells us that the risk is in fact low and remains low for people to acquire the virus. So we're working very closely with the State Department of Health and with our other public health partners and following all the guidance and advisories as they come, and they change pretty frequently. Symptoms of COVID, fever, cough, shortness of breath, fever being 100.4 or higher. So, of course, we recommend to folks who suffer these particular symptoms to call their healthcare provider. And an important recommendation, if anyone seeks healthcare, is to call ahead and advise healthcare providers that they're on their way. This is being recommended straight from the federal CDC on down. And of course, there are mild cases, there are more severe cases globally, some of which unfortunately have resulted in death across the world. There are, though, effective defenses that we have. Most often, we recommend that because the virus does spread either through person-to-person contact or by droplet spread, or even on fomites, which are inanimate objects or surfaces that are frequently touched by infected folks, we recommend that everyday non-pharmaceutical approaches are employed. So frequent hand washing, you've certainly heard, hand sanitizers with 60% or more alcohol content, using a tissue or your upper sleeve instead of sneezing or coughing in your hand, avoiding touching eyes, nose, and mouth. It's really important to stress these things to residents because it's the most effective way to avoid the virus if and when it does become more regional in this area. And of course, for folks that do become sick with anything, to stay home. Also avoid those who might be sick, and there are specific recommendations for monitoring that come from the CDC and the State Department of Health in limited circumstances for self-quarantine with what we call passive monitoring. Just a FYI, the local health department, if we become aware of somebody who may have had exposure to a case of COVID, it is posted on what's called the Communicable Disease Reporting and Surveillance System, an electronic system that only local health departments and the state health department and certain healthcare providers have access to, and we will be made aware of it, in which case, if it is a passive monitoring situation, then that individual will be followed in self-quarantine with the local health department. If it's a more active monitoring circumstance, then local health department nurses will follow them day to day more rigidly, and that's strictly per the CDC guidelines. Other than that, the recommendations, of course, include regular cleaning and disinfection of frequently touched surfaces, and these are the best things that we can do to prevent disease, period. As far as testing goes, we've heard a lot of mixed information in the news media and otherwise about test kits being available. The CDC sets those protocols very strictly, and New Jersey is certified to perform testing, so we know that it's available if people have to be referred for it. The local health department does not do testing, but again, we do have the ability to educate and inform people about how that process works. And just to remind everybody, this is a rapidly evolving situation. It does seem to change every single day, not just in the numbers, but in the recommendations. So this is just, I have 2 inches of a paper copy just in the last 2 or 3 days of guidelines that have been revised by our federal and state partners. So we try to keep up as best we can. We're working with our public health partners for monitoring, for preparations, for the possibility in the future of sending people for care or treatment. We are reviewing and updating our plans. We already have a communicable disease containment plan that is consistent across the northwest region of the state that we operate with. We also have a working pandemic influenza plan, which has been recommended by the CDC that we keep and revise accordingly to help work here. And myself with administration, we've had the benefit of also sharing in other communities and plans they've developed. And Pat just shared, Ms. Seeger just shared something with me in the last couple of hours that another community with a very reputable health officer is working on. So partnering and sharing is something that we're trying to do to combat this and to provide the best information. So that's all I wanted to mention this evening, just to provide you with some kind of current update, and I'm happy to entertain questions or at least attempt to.
I actually have some, if I may. I don't know if anybody else has it. I'll try to make it quick. I was going to bring this up actually in a new business, but I'm glad that we had the opportunity here. Mr. Tabbitt, reading the inter-office memo that we have and talking to some other people within the county, as well as our local municipalities and even the schools in the last 7 to 10 days of how this thing is starting to evolve. And we just recently, I don't know if some of you got the notice from the schools, they're going to have an early dismissal and some of the plans. And I talked to somebody in the Denville school system this morning at the Home Depot that was trying to get some additional cleaning products at the Home Depot. Not that they were out, but as a precautionary to kind of keep up with the flow in the event that there is something that they need to do and address that. So I had a couple of questions which I didn't see in the inter-office memo, plus from talking to other people. Since the COVID-19, it really kind of more generates towards people that have health issues and people that are older age or seniors. My one concern that I have is, are we keeping up with our dial-a-ride? And in the memo that we have, we talk about our offices and workspaces, and not all workspaces or our buildings have any of the sanitizer that's there. It says some, it doesn't say all. And I was just wondering, because when I reached out to somebody that was in MAPS in the county, that kind of offset some of the transportation for those that have an ailment or seniors or a handicap. What are we doing now? Do we have any plan in place? Because we have a mobile office, basically, that's driving individuals to hospitals, to doctors' offices, back and forth. And since they're the most vulnerable one, is there something that we need to do or maybe latch onto from what another agency, even the county OEM, I believe, is involved. I don't know if our OEM is communicating with them as well. That's one question I have.
Okay, a couple of quick things. I can't specifically address dial-a-ride simply because it's not in my jurisdiction, but it is my understanding that the vehicles are cleaned and disinfected routinely. I don't know if that means every day or every couple of days, but I know that they do that routinely, and that there's special sensitivity to that with the heightened concerns for COVID-19. And you're absolutely correct. The people who are most affected by the disease, and most people who do become sick or more severe cases, are elderly or immunocompromised or suffer chronic illnesses, or all the above. The gentleman who passed away at 69 years old in Bergen County, the first in New Jersey, had several, according to reliable sources, had several chronic illnesses. So we do pay special attention to those populations, and that's why the dial-a-ride vehicles are given close attention. The specifics, though, Mr. Coward would probably have to address in more detail.
And one other thing is that since right now with the scare and the social media and the news outlets that are there, people are flocking towards. It's almost like a snowstorm when people go and buy bread and milk for the day that they're going to be home from work. But in this case, the amount of sanitizers, paper towels, cleaning products, and anything to deal with bleach or chlorinated wipes and whatnot. Is there a way maybe we can let people know, since a lot of these outfits and warehousing areas, BJ's, Costco, Home Depot, Lowe's, all those places are running out or have run out? And if there's just a way that maybe we can provide a little bit more information on our website and our social media site that we have there, so that people don't run and flock to these places and they're going to be somewhat disappointed in what they don't find that's there. I mean, you can easily call, of course, but sometimes people don't do that. And maybe we can help assist them with letting them know of areas that are there. Now, we don't, as a municipality, have any concerns about running out of any materials or Perel or anything 6% up with alcohol and whatnot. We have a good inventory with that.
Well, Cal, please.
Yes, and actually it was all put under lock and key today.
That was my next thing, was sometimes that stuff walks, that's out there. And then, and Council President, thank you for the time. I'm just going to make one last thing. Our library. And is there a partnership of communication going back and forth between our library with the municipality as well as the school systems as to what's changing and what they have some ideas, like from the rumor going on, because Mount Olive has already done this, of putting down a 14-day, I guess, self-quarantine, if you will, or closing the schools down. And a lot of the colleges are actually sending children back home and doing online studies and whatnot. Are we having a continuity with all of those other forms of government and universities, or I shouldn't say universities, but high school, elementary school, middle school, stuff like that?
It's a great question, and continuity in services and in messaging is so important at times like this. I can tell you that in the last couple of days, myself and our public health nurses, I spent the afternoon with the nurses of the Jefferson School District. As you know, the Division of Health serves 5 towns, not just Rockaway Township. So we've had those questions from librarians in the towns, from officials in other positions, and certainly from the schools. With regard to the schools, I will mention that it's up to superintendents and school boards in every district what they choose to do at this time. Those guidelines may change at some point. The local health department and the state health department are not at this time advising or requiring schools to close. Again, this is a very dynamic situation, so that may change, but it is up to the superintendents for those policies. With regard to communicating with other officials, one of the purposes of sending out the email which went out from the Department of Administration yesterday to all departments, including the library, was so that everyone is on the same page with guidelines, with recommendations. I just received correspondence from Mr. Davan, our library director, today with questions. If I was not in educating nurses and the superintendent's office this afternoon, then I probably would have already had a correspondence out. As you might guess, my inbox is becoming pretty full, but I did notice the incoming email, and that's something I intend to address in the next several hours.
And you're doing a fantastic job. I mean, like I said, I've always commented and bragged about your reporting and your wealth of information with regard to that. And I think that's it. I did have one question, but I think it's, I mean, because of the state of emergency that's been passed down from our governor, it does give us a little bit of leeway where we can do things that we normally couldn't do to somewhat minimize any risks and put some procedures in place that we may not be able to do because of current statutes or codes that are out there. But because of this, we're allowed to do some other things and put other policies in place to somewhat minimize or reduce any of this to affect the municipality.
Well, one thing that I hope does come from both the billions of dollars in federal funding, about $1 billion of which is supposed to make it down to state health departments and local health departments, and who knows how much would make it to the municipal level. But one thing I hope that comes from that, as well as what you're speaking of, is that we have the ability to acquire more N95 protective masks for first responders into the future, that we can acquire more sanitizer and things that may be of help to the public and to professionals.
And our volunteers don't need anything additional from what they have, what they're limited to, as far as the fire departments and EMS, our police departments as well?
I don't have an inventory of that. I really couldn't speak to that at this moment, but certainly can look into it.
Thank you. I have no other question.
Thank you.
I just have one comment. The state of emergency that the Governor Murphy put into effect is only for state employees. It doesn't come down to the municipalities to have the same as like state employees, and I think the chief can speak to that. He went to a meeting on that, and it only affects state employees, correct, chief?
That is correct.
Okay.
Emergency
Thank you.
declaration only affects state operations and state purchasing.
Chief,
Does not trickle down to the county or municipal level at this time.
Chief, is our OEM involved now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tab, for coming and giving us the information. Appreciate it. Next, we'll go to approval of minutes. First, we can do A, the February 25th, 2020 special budget meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Noon.
Yes.
Vice President Sackett.
Yes.
President Jackson.
Yes, 8 yeses, motion carries. Next is B, February 25th, 2020 regular meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Noon.
Yes.
Vice President Sackett.
Yes.
President Jackson.
Yes, 8 yeses, motion carries.
Council President, I want to be recognized for C, if I could.
Sure.
February 27th, 2020 special meeting, budget meeting minutes. I had sent correspondence to the clerk about information that was omitted of discussion that took place. Especially, we talked about $500,000 move of capital for this Peterson Field project that was there. That wasn't in there as well, and there was also a portion where I had asked to be able to speak as a member of the public portion, which I was disallowed, and that was omitted. Is there a reason why it wasn't put in the minutes?
If you'd like, first of all, your last comment's just false. Second of all, if you'd like to make a motion to change the minutes, make a motion.
I make a motion to include the denial of having a member of the public to speak at the public portion, and I also want the discussion of the Peterson Field $500,000 expenditure for the capital.
Is there a second? There's no second. Anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the special budget meeting February 27th?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly.
I object to the February 27th minutes to be passed as they are omitted the information as requested.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Noon.
Yes.
Vice President Sackett.
Yes.
President Jackson.
Yes, 7 yeses, 1 no, motion carries. Next is open to the public. Mr. Lardy?
Michael Lottie, 19 North Brookside Drive. I don't know if you can comment on it, but from my understanding, if what Tucker just brought up actually happened, why wouldn't it be reflected in the minutes? I mean, nobody seconded it, but maybe it didn't happen, and that could be the reason. If it happened, I think it should be in the minutes. For my other comments are, I'm going to mention the playground again at White Meadow Lake. The board brought up a motion last month that will be voted on next Wednesday for almost $35,000 to replace the playground at the A field. And I'm still hoping that the township is considering, during their budget process, contributing something from our tax dollars to come back to White Meadow Lake.
Real quick on that. We've talked about it a little bit with Ms. Seeger, myself, Mr. Brooks, and I understand what you're saying about that. As a resident, we've talked about giving the township some opportunity to use the tennis courts, and I know we've been denied. So maybe that's something we can work on to do something like that. I know, Ms. Seeger, if you can comment, you said there's a certain thing we have to do to be able to do that?
I would have to investigate that with the attorney, but if public money is to be spent, it has to be on public property. And unless or the lake lease that property to the township for a certain amount of years, that any resident can use it, money can be spent on that property.
Okay, I understand that, and that White Meadow Lake would not agree to that. But I just don't understand how White Meadow Lake is, 25 to 30% of the township, contributes millions in tax dollars, and nothing comes back to that part of the community, which is a large segment of the township, for any kind of recreation for the children. But all those tax dollars contribute to all of the rest of the area. People that live in the Peterson area go to Peterson. People that live up Green Pond go to playgrounds in that area and fields there. But in White Meadow Lake, everybody goes to White Meadow Lake, which White Meadow Lakes pays for. I understand it's a private community. But we don't get a tax deduction for not having any township recreation dollars put into our community. And that's what I'm bringing the attention to.
Mr. Jackson, could I respond just real quick? I mean, everybody else is? Sure. And, we did have a little bit of the discussion of that in that budget meeting. And I did point something out. When you say that there's something that's not a balance as far as what we get versus what the municipality gives, problem is, I think I made an example of Germania Park. Germania Park has an exclusive right for residents of Rockaway Township. In the POA, though there are programs that are through recreation, primarily just softball, baseball, that use there. There's no football games, there's no volleyball games. Of course, there's nothing in regards to any outside organizations that use it. So when you have somebody that's up in, let's say, the 6th Ward that wants to go down there with a bunch of his buddies to have a game on that field, they're not allowed to. So here it is that you're now limiting taxpayers' money that's going into the fields, yet not all the taxpayers can utilize what they're contributing to. And that's where I think that the stalemate and unfairness, maybe people are seeing it. I understand your logic on that, and I understand Jonathan's logic and what Mrs. Siegert's saying. And this isn't the first time that it's been brought up, but you also get a value of what the Park and Recs do to the fields and keep and maintain them. And their primary job, and Mrs. Siegert probably can correct me, Mr. Coward's not here, neither is Mr. Swanton, but they maintain the infields, they cut the grass and stuff like that.
And that's in exchange for the township's use of it.
There is, okay, so now we have an agreement of this for that, but then there's something additional that you want, which is the playground. Well, if I had somebody up in Telemark that wished to use the playground in the POA, they wouldn't be allowed to. And anybody down in White Meadow Lake that wished to come up to Telemark and use their playground on their private property, you can't do it because you have dues and there's no latitude, and there's insurance issues and everything else, because somebody that's not a member in the POA paying close to $700 a year, and then you guys have $1 million budget plus, and then you have another association that has another budget as well. There's funds that you collect that you would then budget it to do those things. I mean, I know I don't want to see the POA say, hey, listen, you know what, you guys can't use this anymore. And when it was offered before with Mrs. Degman about assisting at no cost other than the cost of material because of that infield mix, the clay, well, not everybody gets the benefit. That amount of money that goes in to do that for all of your residents in White Meadow Lake can use all of that, but again, it's limited. And I don't know, Mr. Brooks, how many people play baseball? How many are on collectively that participate in that program? 200, 150, 300?
There's probably close to 400.
400?
Yeah.
So out of 25,000 residents, there's only 400 children that get to participate in there, and you get thousands of dollars of service and material to upgrade those fields. So, it's not going on deaf ears, but that's how I feel. And how I see it, trying to be fair on both sides. And you said it yourself, that you do get a benefit for letting the township use those for those particular programs. But that doesn't include the football guys that don't play baseball, the hockey guys that don't play baseball or softball. We're talking about tennis courts, eliminating them, and rather than put up a new tennis court, it would be great to utilize that area. But again, then you start creating complications because we don't lease it. I think even Norbu Field, that's another one we lease. that everybody, in White Meadow Lake can go up there and utilize. So I don't want to take up your time on
No,
here, and I
okay,
hope
that's
the
fine.
Council
Right.
President, you can extend this time for what I've taken.
Go ahead,
But,
Jeff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. The other thing, I think, just from listening, this parking lot's supposed to be redone, some major project. That's why the lines are invisible,
Mhm.
unless you're
Yes.
handicapped. Okay.
Nope.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Does anybody else from the public wish to speak? Okay.
One last thing, without all the infighting, you see the crowd is gone? That means people are happy.
Next, we're going to go to number 8, ordinance introduced. We're going to start with O-20-09. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, I'm going to read the title. It's Ordinance Amending Chapter 7, Article 3 of the Revised Ordinances of the Township of Rockaway. I'm going to read the whole thing. In order to add new ordinance section 62 at sequence establishing a Title 39 enforcement plan for the regulation of parking or standing and of traffic onto, on, and off of private property occupied by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen, identified on the official tax map of Rockaway Township as Block 1020, Lot 27, more commonly known as 437 US Highway 46.
And again,
Council
I
President, could I just have a
made the motion.
quick discussion on that? I have one quick question on a
Sure.
definition. Mr. Gachafano, on section 7-62.6, do you have the ordinance in front of you by chance?
Where's the title of the ordinance?
I can't hear you. If you can pull the microphone towards you. It would be on this, technically the third page, which would be the front of the second page, because they're front to back. But it would be section 7-62.6.
I see it.
Can you define parking, stopping, and standing?
It's not for me to define it, it's for the ordinance to define it. Or it's defined in Title 39. Definition section in Title 39, since this is a Title 39 designation, the definitions provided in 39 are the definition sections that would apply.
So the definitions of 39, I think, are 39:11, 1.1 on there. Chief, would you know what standing, or parking, stopping, or standing is, since it's dealing with Title 39 of the police?
Parking is when you come to a complete stop, your car's placed in a park, the ignition's turned off, and there's some movement in the vehicle. Stopping is such as when you pull up, you come to a complete stop, your engine's still running, you're basically discharging or accepting passengers or loads into the vehicle. And standing is basically if you're sitting waiting at the curb with your engine running.
Uh-huh.
As usually that applies to taxi cabs or limousines.
You can't sit around idling, waiting, or whatnot.
Not take up the space along the curb, waiting for a ride or anything else, somebody jumping in,
Okay.
anything like that.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Thank you.
Mr. Quinn?
moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Chris?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember New?
Yes.
Vice President Sackett?
Yes.
President Jackson?
Yes, 8 yeses, motion carries. Next is the consent agenda.
I make a motion on that, if I could, Council President?
Sure.
And I'll give you a reason why. If we could remove C, R20-63, and D, R2064, just for discussion, and I'll tell you the reason. One, on C, we're talking about $1 million. If we can just have a little bit of discussion as to why we're transferring funds of $1 million. Two, which is R20-64, I think it would be appropriate if Mr. Freelander was to read this resolution, since he was the one that originally had mentioned about Daytop and communicating to our senator about that and the risk of what they're trying to do, which is a horrible risk if they go through with that. And I mean, I'm not answering for Mr. Freelander, but I think he sent the letter down. I had sent something different, and I thought the resolution would be a great idea. I think just a little
Is there a
discussion.
second on that motion?
I'll second. Thank you.
That was Mr. Kritz.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander.
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Noon.
Yes.
Vice President Sackett.
Yes.
President Jackson.
Yes. 8 yeses, motion carries.
On C, like I had somewhat narrated in there as the reason for a motion to remove it for discussion, we have snow removal operating expenses here for $250,000, and then we have a capital improvement fund for $750,000. We did speak about snow removal. We were very fortunate this year. We had a very limited storm sequence that was going on from 19 to 2020. What's the reason for the removal of the $250,000, Mrs. Seeger?
You're putting it in the snow removal.
I understand that.
And the reason is, the auditor was there and explained to you this at the budget meeting, and they are putting this in there for future in case we ever need it for emergencies.
Yeah, the public don't know that, so.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And for the capital improvement fund?
Same reason that this is in the future, to put it in there for capital improvement, because the council has asked us not to go out and borrow as much money, and this will lower what we have to borrow in the future.
And this is coming from those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are on there?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if I wanted to make a motion for a reduction on any of these, I would make a motion now. Mrs. Clipperton?
I mean, if you're making a motion to amend the resolution, yeah, you would not have to do so now.
And Mrs. Palmieri's not here. If we wanted to move some of this money into another account, we would make a motion to move that money into another account and then see if it's second and if it's a move. But does the account have to go to operating expenses, or can we move this money into something else?
I think it has to stay, I don't think you can cross.
Capital and operating.
Yeah.
Do we know that for a fact?
No, but I think that capital stays capital, but he's moving it to capital improvement fund, so
Well, you're moving operating expenses to capital.
what are you
That's-
thinking about?
I would like to make a motion to reduce the amount for the municipal clerk's operating expenses by $10,000 and putting that $10,000 in the salary and wages for the municipal clerk.
I would say make that motion, see if it gets seconded.
Just that. I think the two clerks that are there that are RMCs, again, to what has happened in the past practices from our mayor giving a raise to an individual that received the RMC of $5,000. I don't know why we're not giving it to the two other individuals that received the
So make
same.
your motion.
I do have a comment, though. I think that would have to be, all right, because you already, the budget's being introduced next week. This is for future. And I don't know, I think you would just have to increase the budget, like if you were going to do something like that. I don't think it would be proper to do it here, but he can make,
Mr. Yetrafano?
Well, first of all, Council President, I have a procedural question. We have a consent agenda. Where are we in the process of moving the consent agenda? I've kind of looked.
So we removed those 2 items, C and D, for discussion, and we're discussing them.
Okay. Okay. So on any item removed from the agenda, it would be appropriate for the council to entertain a motion as to either of those matters.
Okay.
Motion would have to be seconded and voted on, as usual. If the motion to amend either of those matters is rejected, you would then proceed to the vote on the item as stated.
Okay.
But we would still, since they're removed on it, we would vote on the other items on the consent agenda separately, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So you want to make your motion?
I'm making a motion to reduce the $20,000 amount for the municipal clerk's operating expenses and increasing the salary and wages for the municipal clerks by $10,000.
You can only make a motion to address the substance of the resolution as stated. You
Yeah.
can't make a motion to reach out to other things that are not presently before the council and to amend other things that are not before the council, such as the budget.
That's
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Mr. Friedlander, did you want to read your letter for D? Yes. Yeah.
Can we vote on C first?
Yes, can we vote on, can I have a motion to approve C? R dash
I'll make the
20-63?
Second. Already made motion.
Yep.
Councilmember Kelly?
Abstain.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Sackett?
Yes.
President Jackson?
Yes. 8 yes, 7 yeses, 1 abstention, motion carries. Mr. Friedlander, D?
Thank you, Council President. Resolution R-20-64. Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Rockaway in support of Daytop Mendham. Whereas Daytop Mendham is a 70-bed adolescent substance abuse treatment center, and whereas there is a lack of residential treatment programs in New Jersey specifically to serve young people struggling with issues of substance use and addiction, and whereas for close to 30 years, Daytop Mendham has enabled thousands of children to transform their lives by leaving drug addiction behind to become productive adolescents and young adults. Numerous counties, including Morris County, have throughout this time partnered with Daytop, providing both funding and facilities to maximize the life-saving services that are provided by Daytop. Each of these counties understood that the treatment, education, and social structure provided by Daytop was significantly and more beneficial than warehousing children in juvenile detention centers or placing youth in out-of-school suspension. And whereas in 2014, the state of New Jersey made a decision to transfer adolescent substance use disorder treatment providers who until this time were managed within the state's Department of Human Resources, Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services, which is DMHAS, into the Department of Children and Families, DCF, Children's System of Care, which is CSOC. As such, effective July 2014, adolescent residential services at Daytop, Integrity House, Newark Renaissance House, New Hope Integrated Behavioral Health Care, Straight and Narrow, and the Lighthouse began operation under DCF, CSOC, and whereas in 2016, DCF implemented policy changes that resulted in a significant reduction of referrals to New Jersey's state-funded long-term specialty treatment programs for youth and with substance use disorders. While clearly certain specific aspects of these policy changes were constructive, they have in effect resulted in the closing of 5 of the original 6 residential substance use disorder treatment facilities in our state. And whereas Daytop Mendham has become the very last remaining option for addiction specialty long-term residential care services available to this at-risk population and is in imminent danger of closing in the spring of 2020. And whereas Daytop Mendham has a history of success and expertise in the area for close to 30 years, helping young people in their journey to recovery by providing a continuum of treatment services, including residential treatment for adolescents, and whereas young people in New Jersey deserve to have the opportunity for residential treatment if that is their best course for their recovery. And whereas the Township Council of the Township of Rockaway believes that the solution to saving this critical resource and valued treasure is to have DCF recognize Daytop Mendham as a specialty adolescent residential treatment provider and to permit the blending of funds inclusive of a combination of cost-based and fee-for-service. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Rockaway, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, respectfully ask the State of New Jersey Office of the Governor to intervene to help preserve Daytop Mendham so that these life services for our youth do not disappear. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Governor Phil Murphy, Senator Anthony M. Bucco, Assemblyman Brian Bergen, Assemblywoman Ora Dunn, Senator Joseph F. Vitale, and Daytop Representative Gene Capel. And of course, certification by
Thank you.
Christina Cole.
Who wrote the resolution?
We used resources from several towns, the freeholders, and, took the best parts, put it together.
Very well
Yeah.
assembled.
Mr. Friedlander, would you like to make a motion to approve it?
I would like to make a motion to approve
Second.
this resolution.
Mr. Kelly? Second.
Who said that?
Throw them out.
Throw them out.
I'll be more than happy to read it
Kelly.
again.
Friedlander and Kelly.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Kritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Sackett?
Yes.
President Jackson?
Yes, 8 yeses, motion carries. Can I have a motion to approve R20-61, R20-62, and R20-65.
So moved.
Second.
Did you second? Quinn and second. I know.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Kritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Sackett?
Yes.
President Jackson?
Yes, 8 yeses, motion carries. Next is council appointments.
Mr. Jackson, if I can be recognized real quick?
Sure.
Could you, maybe Mrs. Noon would be the best one. Could you give a small description of what the Community Development Revenue Sharing Committee is? And
That
what
was
your role-
already, yeah, that was already shared with Mrs. Noon, and she went through and read it, and I think had some questions and got them answered. Yeah, so I think we're comfortable where it's at. So do I have a motion
I don't
to
know, I mean,
approve?
I just want, maybe.
So
I
moved.
want to know.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Kelly?
Abstain.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Kritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Sackett?
Yes.
President Jackson?
Yes, that's 7 yeses, 1 abstention. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mary. Next is mayor's appointment.
For the Shade Tree Commission, 1-year term ending 12/31/2020.
Okay. Next, number 11, old business. Anybody have old business?
I have old business.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Seeger, we had spoken at one of the last council meetings with regard to the RT Castle potential dog park and the cleanup that's there. And I know that you had mentioned about a fence that's going up there. I travel that Snake Hill Road often. They had just recently done some grading on it not too long ago. But it continues to keep growing and growing like the blob of debris that's further into the parking area. Since you had mentioned about putting up a fence, would it be a little bit more economically beneficial to the taxpayers if we just put boulders in front of the entrances or ingress and egress of that parking area to stop people from pulling in and dumping in that parking area now?
Yeah, I don't remember mentioning a fence.
Yeah.
But I did tell you it was going to be blocked off after they clean it up. I don't remember a fence.
Yeah, you mentioned, I mean, I wrote it down as well when you had spoken about it, but you had mentioned the fence that was there, and I thought it'd be a little bit, maybe
Wow.
financially friendly if we did.
You're a
We have an
neighbor.
inventory of boulders that are there.
They plan on blocking it with boulders.
Do you have an idea when that may happen? 'Cause this has been going on for a couple of years.
No, it's on the DPW list. I can ask
Okay, that'd be great. If you could respond to me maybe tomorrow, let me know.
when I get a hold of them.
That's all I have for old business.
Okay. Anybody else have old business? Mr. Friedlander.
Well, since it's old, it was just voted on, I guess it's old business. I just want to thank the entire council and the administration for supporting Resolution 20-64 for Daytop. next month, this month, actually, they'll be going down to Trenton with guns a-blazing to defend it. And certainly this, I believe, will help in the cause for keeping Daytop open. Thanks again for everybody's support.
Any other old business? Any new business?
I have a couple of things on new business.
Go ahead.
What we were I was trying to have added into the minutes for February 27th when we were having discussions about Peterson Field. I do support any kind of improvements that we can do. However, I always support it when there's some type of a plan, a projection of what we're going to do with that. At that budget meeting, I had asked Mr. Brooks to provide me this plan. Again, at the time, I was unaware that we have a sitting council member that is providing plans which the township subcontracted professionals are reviewing. And when we had this amount of money where we created a line item for $500,000. We also had a capital bond for $250,000 for the Peterson Field basketball court, which was reduced from $400,000. So what I see here now is that we have $750,000, and we were moving around timeframes of completion of our capital plan that we had there. We're moving this year's payment and then adding it to next year's payment, but still fulfilling the required time frame to purchase, like in this case was a fire truck apparatus. But there was a plan. They had 2 payments with a light at the end of the tunnel. I have a plan which is on the desk over there where the agenda is from Mr. Brooks, and I don't see anything of any projection costs or how long that we look to do this. I mean, I see a hockey rink. I see 5 basketball courts, where before we had a plan from Keller Kirkpatrick and an agreement back in 2016 for only 3 courts, 2 of them being official, 1 being just a smaller court. You know, in April of 2018, we had a woman come up to the public portion and complain about the tennis courts, which somewhat created all of this conversation and debates of this $400,000 originally from last year's budget. Is there is there a plan that you guys, you came to that budget meeting and it was obviously already done. Nobody wanted to talk about it. I have my engineer that won't even give me the name of the firm that's doing this review of this plan.
You received it.
Mrs. Seeger had no idea. I had to make an open request to get it. I mean, what is that I have a council president who doesn't want to put it on the minutes. So what is it that we're doing here? I mean, I don't feel comfortable spending $750,000 of somebody's money, the taxpayers' money. It's not just our money. Mr. Brooks, I'm sure if you had a customer or a client and just said, hey, listen, give me $500,000, no proposal, no idea of how much you're going to charge that customer or client. Our client is our taxpayers, our residents that are here, and I understand that we want to do these things. I'm very sympathetic for Mr. Quinn because he's been pushing for a rec center for how long, Jack? 30 years? Community center. Either way, I understand that, but you know we're altering the stuff for life-saving equipment and cutting back on other things, and we're adding $500,000 plus another $250,000 with zero discussion. And when we have discussion, we omit it from the minutes because somebody questioned this amount of money. I'm into recreation. I'm not into recklessness when it comes to spending. So can somebody here, either our administration or some of the council members that are involved, primarily ones that are connected with rec, can you please tell me what plan you have and what's the longevity of this plan?
Can I speak, Council President?
Yeah.
So, just a couple things, and so correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Brooks, I don't like calling it his plan, and I think that this all started.
It says it right. All right.
But this started before he was a council person. All right, so this was before he was on council.
The plan was actually generated on the 2nd of October of
Can you let him speak?
2019.
He didn't interrupt you. Let him speak.
All right, so this started before he was a council member. All right, now, did we reappropriate some money? Yes, but we didn't take it from anything. All we did was move it around.
And I know we're talking about a fire truck, and that fire truck is still gonna come, and it's just, when the money's gonna get put aside for the truck, but the truck is still coming. As far as the actual plan, it's just a plan. We're not voting to spend that money yet. We're not spending it, we're just reserving it. All right, now,
It's a conceptual drawing.
right, it doesn't mean.
It's not a plan.
With all due respect to Mr. Brooks, he's gonna have a lot of convincing when we start talking about, a rink, but I'm not taking it that this is anything final. It's conceptual, it started before he was on council, and I don't like calling it his plan. I mean, I support anything that we're gonna do with Peterson, but it doesn't mean it's gonna end up like that.
No, I understand it, but just so the public know, that it does say, it says DAB Construction. This is Mr. Brooks's company.
But it also says conceptual if you read it.
No, it does, and it also doesn't say that our professionals are reviewing it. So taxpayers' money are reviewing this. We already have a basketball plan that has been submitted with an actual projection of what it's gonna cost from Keller Kirkpatrick. And I believe that came in October of 2018, from original proposal that happened in September of 2016. We paid $4,000 for that plan. Now we have something completely different added on here. Now you're taking away the tennis courts, which were the initial reason why we were doing this. Now when we talked about the dog park, all along, now the dog park's going into a heavy populated area, sports venues, over by where the tennis courts were.
But to suggest that we're just wholesaling as a council approving this is not
It's not
accurate.
Well, obviously, there's a majority of individuals, because you didn't just come and say, wow, that sounds like a great idea, I'm gonna vote for $500,000 without knowing anything. There was many members that knew exactly what was taking place. You laugh. So
It's not true.
You vote on
It's not
$500,000
true.
without having any information?
But you have to have a conceptual plan. You have to start somewhere.
You know what? Before I buy a house, I'm sure when you bought your house,
You're not
I
comparing
wanna know.
apples to apples.
I-
You're not comparing apples. It's a different situation.
It's a spending of money.
It's a different situation. This is what you do all the time. It's not comparing apples to
Mr.
apples.
Jackson, we have.
What's your next new business item?
The $750,000.
What's your next new business item?
Is the $250,000 of the capital bond ordinance gonna be collectively added into this $500,000 we put away?
Do you have another new
I'm asking you a
business item?
question.
I'm not answering it.
Okay, that's a good enough answer right there.
Yep. Said you had another item?
We addressed the corona that's there, we addressed the, maps, we also dealt with Daytop. The, stopping and standing that we just spoke about, Chief, and this is new business, to look into the food truck. Now, we do have it in our, ordinances under Park and Rec, I think it's under 17, that says no parking or standing on township property or parks property. But what you just described to me about standing, it appears that might be something that may be taking place on our senior building property next to the handicap area, as well as the gazebo area that's there.
Okay, if you're making a complaint, Mr. Kelly, we will definitely look into
There are people that have complained, we've gotten emails from those individuals. I know, Mr. Jackson, you responded.
I got one,
You
yes.
said that you couldn't do anything about it. But you just heard the definition of the chief, and we see an action that's taking place.
So it's, the no parking referred to in the Popeyes. Is it no parking in a parking spot?
We're talking about standing.
Whatever.
Well,
I
there's
mean, this
three
is- this is a-
definitions that you
it's a
heard him
parking
say.
spot. Listen, file a complaint. I advised the person I spoke to, I spoke to the mayor, I spoke to the business administrator. I advised her to look into it further and speak with them further and see if she had other people that had a similar viewpoint and to come and present a case. I didn't tell her I couldn't do anymore. That's what I told her. I said, that's what you should do. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, obviously you brought the issue up with that truck. First of all, he's parked. The only thing that's running is the compressor. But the fact that he has a permit to operate a mobile business, where's he gonna park? On private property for that permit? He's gotta have to park,
No, but
so.
in the ordinances that we have, if you review the ordinance, there's a provision in there that's prohibited. So yeah, you get a permit, but you have to comply with what the revisions are within that, with the permit. So there's a component to that, Mr. Freelander. It doesn't just say parking, but standing. So you would park, you would move, and then you would continue to roll on into different areas, or if there's a function going on, that the concession stands going or taking place. There's a lot of provisions that are on there. If you read it, it's pretty self-explanatory, and then it cites Title 39, and you go in 39 under 39-101 with the definitions, and our own chief just defined it as well. So from that woman that's been interested in making calls to the health department, and as well as our governing body, there's some points that she's making, and I think we need to look into that and really determine whether or not that there's any issues that are there, or maybe we need to address our ordinance on that. Because again, there could be 7 food trucks that park in all 7 spaces over there, and then what you're saying is that would be fine. But then nobody else could utilize those spaces. And if you had an side access van for handicap that backed in, they wouldn't be able to get the wheelchair ramp out in order to dislodge out of the vehicle. So, I mean, this person's making some valid questions that are there. And to simply say that there's nothing we can do about it.
No, I didn't simply say that.
No,
Again, you
That's okay.
mischaracterized
I'm only reiterating
everything.
what she said to me.
Right.
No big
right.
deal.
You saw
I
the
didn't remember
emails,
you
right?
being there
You
as
saw
part
the
of the
emails,
conversation.
right? You know everything. Anything else?
I know that you don't want to listen to it.
Anything else?
No, Mr. Jackson.
Okay, thank you. Any
You're
other new
welcome.
business? Okay, council reports. Start with Mr. Brooks.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
2 things. Number 1, I wanted to first congratulate the combined Mars Knolls, Mars Hills hockey team for winning their 2nd back-to-back state championship. And so good to see the combined team, which uses all Rockaway Township kids on one program, since they do it from the kids up, and they get to play together and get to share in that glory instead of being separate and some missing out on that opportunity. And now I can officially shave my playoff beard.
Never happened.
So that's good.
Can you mention the coaches, their names?
One is Coach Kepler. The other is Coach McCarter. There's also, man, now you're getting me all down the line. There's a whole bunch of them there. Those are the main 2 head coaches. And Coach Bart. Those are the 3 main coaches for the varsity program. And the other thing would be, also want to just congratulate the Pewee Rockaway Black team for winning their championship just over the weekend as well. And also, good. And then in 2 weeks will be the Red, White, and Blue Sunday at the Faith Family Fellowship. Oh, I got your thing? There you go. Very good. That is it for tonight.
Okay. Mr. Quinn.
Yes, thank you. First, I attended the recreation meeting. Sports are running fine. They do need volunteers. They ran a Red Cross safety program for the coaches to be certified, so that is done, but they do need volunteers to keep these programs running. The other thing, sign-ups are also up and running. If you go to the website, you'll be able to sign your kids up. The ordinance committee, we have a draft. I met with John, and hopefully we'll get a final revision so that we can get the ordinance committee together and hopefully get it on for the end of the month for the council to look at and get it moving. And then finally, seeing we won't be back here until the 24th, St. Patrick's Day is coming up, so everybody enjoy. Don't drown your shamrock too much, but be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Friedlander.
Just a quick one. Again, Historical Society, great meeting this past month. Women in the Revolutionary War. And back then, the women did run this country too. So, point. And they still, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Second, remember the fundraiser in April? Library is good. And that's it.
Ms. Snoot?
I
Jack,
also
you turn
attended
off
the
Yeah.
Historical Society with Manny. It was very, very interesting. And they meet the first Monday of every month here in this room. And don't forget about the pancake breakfast this Sunday, and happy St. Patty's Day.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
A couple of things. Just to follow up what Mr. Freelander said about Daytop, just so that people know that, not only does Daytop have a positive impact on the patient that's there, the one that's battling addiction, but it also has a positive impact to the family and friends of that individual or individuals that are there. It does make it going through a hard time a little bit easier, and it's unfortunate that we had some young individuals, and I say young, I mean 30, 40 years old, younger than me, that have succumbed to their addiction. So just whatever it would cost to save one life, I think it's a huge value. So we need to look at that and keep on that. I'm sure Mr. Freelander will keep us apprised. Thank you for that, Mr. Freelander. The other thing, you might be seeing a lot of activity and blinking lights. Morris County has really been cleaning up not only the roads itself, but even the shoulder of the roads, garbage, debris, cutting back some trimming and branches and whatnot throughout our county roads. You'll see 513, 664 cutting through. And I know they do it to all the municipalities throughout Morris County, but I do see it a lot, and that would be Darren Costanza. I also know that Greg St. John and Michael D'Agostino, which are the main players in the county, they do a great job with that. I also wanted to do a congratulations. We have a resident up in the 6th Ward who was promoted from Detective Corporal to Detective Sergeant. That would be Sergeant David Kenny. He works in the Sheriff's Department. He's on the professional standards. I believe he worked along with the Warrant Squad, picking up a lot of stuff with you there. And, just seeing him around in the community, he's a wonderful officer for what he does in law enforcement, but he's also a great neighbor. He's a wonderful father and husband, and a perfect fit for the community up there. And let's see, the other thing I wanted to mention is that their Snake Hill, they did a large cleanup going up and down the road that's there to make it a little bit more passable. I know the beginning section of Snake Hill coming off of Green Pond leading up to the entrance of Lake Ames is a little rough, but it looked like they put some millings and some ground material down leading into where the Sportsman's Club entrance was and then throughout all the way to Picatinny. So I just thank the DPW for their efforts there and look forward to cleaning up over at RT Castle. And then the last thing is just have everybody have a wonderful and happy St. Patrick's Day and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kritz?
This past weekend, rec basketball had their championship games, boys and girls. I was very happy to see many people there. There was not any space to be had. I saw Mayor Puzio was there. Really exciting games and happy for them. Their all-star games are this coming Saturday, also at Copeland. The Rockets program has their sign-ups now for cheerleading and football. In-person sign-ups are on the 25th at DBO. And they're also having their second annual Tricky Tray on May 29th. For those of you who look for nodding your heads back there, thank you. We'll see you at the Tricky Tray. And just like Mr. Quinn said, the sports can't operate without volunteers. So I say it every time, and I'll say it again. Everything is volunteer-driven, and it can't be done without. So whatever help can be given is appreciated.
Get a good turnout with the Rutgers course?
I'll talk about that, yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Sackett?
I'm gonna have to steal your thunder. You can finish up about the Rutgers safety course, but I did send my son to it, and he said it was very nice, and he enjoyed it, and seemed like there was a lot of youngsters getting involved. He told me, and it's a great job, Council President Jackson, on that. There's also a 4th grade boys recreation championship this weekend if you want to come watch my team. So that'll be Friday and Saturday. So we still have some left to do, and there's also the high school rec boys basketball playoffs next week. So there's still a lot of stuff to do, and there's a lot of get involved. The breakfast this weekend, the red, white, and blue the following weekend. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Get involved in your community. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have two things. First, Mr. Friedlander, is there something coming up with the Historical Society with getting together and reminiscing about memories of Rockaway? I was just looking for it on Facebook, but I think it's something that look.
Well, they had memories once before. The next one is because they also partner with Picatinny.
Right.
And Picatinny is having one this month.
Okay, that's what it was, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that, and then for Mr. Sacker,
And you could always check their website.
yeah, it's on the
because
website. Yeah.
they literally put everything on their website if you're interested.
And then the second thing, last week, Mrs. Gabe from Recreation, myself taught a Rutgers safety class. We had over 70 people. The vast majority were township residents, probably 30 children, like eighth graders, a couple ninth graders, a couple seventh graders that are either going to umpire, officiate different sports, and it was just great. They were all. Your son sat in the front row with his buddies, and they were actually very interactive. It's a 3-hour class, so if the people aren't interactive, it's kind of tough, but they were all very interactive. And the thing I liked about too, there are a lot of people there that aren't necessarily coaching. They're just getting their certification in case somebody needs help, and they can come on the field and help. So I think it went really well. But yeah, over 70 people attended. And that's my report. I don't know. Mr. Mayor, does anybody have any reports there? I know you usually do them at month end, but at the second meeting.
I'll just make a couple brief comments.
Microphone.
I'll just make a couple brief comments. I have good news about the bridge. I'm not going to steal Allison's thunder because she'll take care of the technical aspect of that. But it appears that there's not going to be a 6 to 8 week delay with that. I'll let Allison speak to that. A couple weeks ago, we had a presentation by Backpacks for Life. He has been in touch with, Brett has been in touch with Allison, so they will be at Rockaway Day on June 6th, which we're excited about. And I just want to make a few remarks in terms of the recreational facilities. I'm excited. I'm not going to go into any detail tonight, but we are moving forward with plans. We're going to obtain a cost analysis because any good plan, you have to know what you're going to be spending. And the entire council will be involved at that at the appropriate time. Once we get our information back, once we get some costs, hard costs put down on paper, the entire council will be involved with that, and they will be involved in the decision-making process. As well as I'm going to solicit input, as I have in the past, during this process with getting the heads of the different sports involved because they have the technical expertise. Although we have quite a few people up here on the council with recreational background and have been invested in recreation over the course of time, I want to be collaborative and get all the sports involved that are going to be used in the field so we can get the best system for the best price. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Township Attorney?
No report, Council President.
Mrs. Seeger?
No.
Ms. Ferrante?
In regards to the county bridge, we were days, if not moments, away from opening Chestnut Terrace and restoring the traffic patterns. But unfortunately, the contractor in the county came across some utility issues and have been working with the various utility companies. But thanks largely to the township stepping in, and especially Ms. Seeger here with her contacts. I don't know whether anybody drove by the site today. They were actually
We were there today, yeah. I saw.
Yes, and they were drilling for a new pole, which was part of the resolution to fix the problem and open up that section of roadway. So hopefully that initial estimate of 6 to 8 weeks has drastically reduced. So we are in constant communication with the county to push on their end and get that open. So hopefully next meeting I will have more positive and we're all traffic flow.
Be open.
Yes. And I just want to remind everybody that we will be going to construction on Taylor Street between Crestmont and Perry. So there will be a full detour for a couple of weeks now, 4 to 8 weeks, okay? So please be patient. If you have any concerns, give the Rockaway Township Engineering Department a call.
I just want to say one more thing about the bridge. It was a pleasure to work with the county. The engineering department at the county has been fantastic. They've been in touch with the town, with the administration, along the whole entire process. Anything that happened that were delays, any issues that came up, they helped us put in, and correct me if I'm stating it wrong, they helped us with some repairs, some other structural repairs that were actually the responsibility of the town. They took up upon doing the building and doing the repairs on their own dime. So they have been a pleasure to work with. That's,
And that's Mr.
great
Vitz.
project.
That'd be Mr. Christopher Vitz that you've been dealing with?
Chris Fitz,
Yep.
Rosalind, as well as Danielle Freeland.
Thank you, Ms. Ferranti. Chief McParland?
Mr. President, we've been busy with warmer weather. Two outstanding drug arrests that the officers have made I'd like to bring to your attention. On February 28th, Officer Greg Albert observed an out-of-state vehicle make a traffic violation. He proceeded to make a traffic stop, and through his training and experience, he was able to develop that traffic stop into an arrest of a 25-year-old male from Montague and a 54-year-old female from Matamoros. Through this arrest and his interrogation of the suspects, he was able to confiscate 10 bricks of heroin, which comes out to be 30 folds, which is 30 doses of heroin, as well as a number of prescription drugs such as Oxycontin. So, once again, Officer Albert did an outstanding job. And also, in the White Meadow Lake section, on March 10th, Detective Taffin developed enough probable cause for the issuance of a search warrant. The search warrant was executed, and the residence that was hit, they seized over 6 pounds of marijuana, 2 pounds of edible drugs, including psychedelic mushrooms, a handgun with hollow point bullets, and $5,000 in cash. Again, I'd like to just mention Detective Taffin for his outstanding work, as well as Officer Albert.
Was that today? You said March 10th?
That was March 10th and February 28th.
So today.
Yeah. And I'd just like to mention this Saturday, once again, Challenger Basketball will be at Stony Brook Gym from 10 a.m. to 12.
Chief, was there something about a baby being delivered?
What's that?
Was there something about a baby being delivered? I thought we had something on the,
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
right, on the PBA. I don't know if Sergeant Tazi, if there was two, I think Jack's son-in-law.
Greg Albert was involved.
Yeah, there was a couple. Can anybody mention that? Yeah, I just, next council meeting, maybe we can have, and Chief, just real quick, did we complete the plaque down there of all the retired police officers and that's up against by the record window?
What we're trying to do is we're trying to coordinate, what we like putting on is besides their retirement, we like to make sure that the retirement dates are correct.
Okay.
We have to go through the old, since, needless to say, it has not been updated in quite a while.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to update the DWI awards and also the Mayor's and Medal of Honor plaques.
No, any way we can update that, and maybe Mrs. Seeger, you can somehow choreograph with Sergeant Tazi with that information about the baby, and maybe we can put it on our own township Facebook rather than the PBA.
Absolutely.
Okay,
You gotta ask them for that, thank you.
is that it, Chief?
That's it, thank
Mr.
you.
Dyer? No report? So next, we're going to closed session, R 20-66, resolution authorizing executive closed session in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6, for consideration and discussion of potential contract with Rockaway Center Associates. We anticipate this closed session to last 15 minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Council President, you want to mention when you're gonna feel that these are gonna be open to the public, the minutes of the closed session?
I'm sorry?
You want to state when that you anticipate the minutes will be available for the public? You don't have to if you don't want to. Mr. Yachafano, is that something that we should do? Under 10:4-13?
You should say it.
We anticipate the minutes to the closed session to be available in 30 days.
You're welcome.
Take a roll call.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander,
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Noon,
Yes.
Vice President Sackett,
Yes.
President Jackson.
Yes, 8 yeses, motion carries. We're going to go into closed session. It is 8:45 PM. We're going to go in the other room over there, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Okay. Where'd Doug go? Oh, there he is. Can we get a motion to come back into public session?
Make the motion?
Second.
President?
Manny and Mary.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Sackett?
Yes.
President Jackson?
Yes, it's 8 yeses. We're back in public session. Next is,
Quick, Joe, can I remind everyone that if you're not talking, can you please turn your mics off, please?
next to be Resolution R-20-67, resolution of the Township of Rockaway authorizing the mayor and township clerk to sign a contract with Rockaway Center Associates for public safety services for portions of Rockaway Town Square Mall. Get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Fritz?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Noon?
Yes.
Vice President Sackett?
Yes.
President Jackson?
Yes. Motion carries. 8
8 yeses.
yeses, motion carries. That's the last item on our agenda tonight. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Meeting's adjourned.
Okay. Here we go.
Oh, okay.